is the geopolitical landscape of the Catholic Church. With Christianity in decline across much of Europe and North America, there is an increasing recognition that the future of Catholicism lies in the global South. Africa in particular has seen a dramatic rise in Catholic conversions, and its bishops have become more vocal in Vatican affairs. While an African pope has not yet been elected, it is a possibility that cannot be ignored. Some speculate that a candidate from Africa or Latin America could emerge as a compromise choice, especially if the debate between Tagle and Parellin leads to a deadlock in the end. The decision will rest in the hands of the cardinals who enter the Sistine Chapel when the time comes. The conclave is a deeply spiritual event, one that is guided by prayer, reflection, and inevitably political maneuvering. Every elector will bring with them their own vision for the church, their own hopes for the future, and their own alliances. Some will see in Tagle the promise of a church that is more connected to the people it serves, while others will look to Parellin as a guardian of tradition and stability. What is certain is that the Catholic Church is entering a defining moment, one that will shape its path for years to come. The decisions made now will not only determine the next pope, but will also set the tone for how the Church responds to the moral, social, and political questions of the 21st century. Will it continue on the path of reform, seeking greater openness and engagement with the world? Or will it turn inward, focusing on preserving its traditions and reinforcing its historical structures? For those who look to the Church for guidance, these questions are not just abstract debates. They are deeply personal, affecting the way faith is practiced and understood across the world. The outcome of the next conclave will have profound consequences, and as the speculation continues, the faithful wait, hoping that the choice made will be one that leads the Church forward with wisdom, compassion, and a clear sense of purpose. As the anticipation surrounding the next papal election grows, the weight of history presses down upon those who will ultimately decide the future of the Catholic Church. The College of Cardinals, the elite body entrusted with selecting the next pope, will soon find itself at the center of one of the most consequential decisions in modern church history. The Vatican, a place of deep tradition and unspoken struggles, is already stirring with quiet discussions, behind-the-scenes negotiations, and strategic alignments as different factions prepare to advocate for their preferred candidate. Cardinal Luis Tagle remains a leading figure in this unfolding drama, his reputation as a bridge builder between cultures and a champion of the marginalized continuing to make him a compelling option for those who seek a more progressive Catholicism. His rise through the ranks has been swift, and his deep alignment with the vision of Pope Francis suggests that a Tagle-led papacy would be a continuation of the current direction, one that prioritizes compassion, outreach, and reform. However, while his supporters view him as the best choice to guide the Church into the future, there are formidable obstacles in his path, and they extend far beyond the walls of the Vatican. One of the primary challenges Tagle faces is the lingering resistance to Pope Francis' reforms. Although Francis has been widely praised for his efforts to modernize the Church and bring it closer to the realities of contemporary society, his leadership has not been without controversy. Traditionalists, particularly those within the more conservative factions of the Vatican, have expressed concern that his policies have weakened the doctrinal foundations of the Church, making it more vulnerable to external cultural pressures. Many of these critics view Tagle as the direct successor to Francis' ideology, which makes his candidacy a source of tension among those who wish to see a return to a more traditional form of governance. This resistance is not just theological, it is also political. The Vatican, despite its spiritual mission, operates like any other institution of power, with rivalries, alliances, and deeply ingrained bureaucratic structures that influence decision-making. Tagle's relative distance from the Vatican's administrative core may work against him, as many of those involved in the election process prefer a leader who understands the complexities of Vatican governance, While Tagle has demonstrated strong leadership on the global stage, having served as the head of Caritas Internationales and the prefect of the Congregation for the Evangelization of Peoples, his experience within the inner workings of the Curia is not as extensive as that of some of his competitors, particularly Cardinal Pietro Parolin. As the Vatican Secretary of State, represents a different kind of leadership, one that prioritizes diplomacy, stability, and the preservation of traditional church structures. His supporters argue that, in a time of global instability, the church needs a pope who can navigate the political landscape with precision intact. Parolin's diplomatic skills have been well documented, particularly in his handling of complex negotiations between the Vatican and various world governments. His ability to mediate disputes and maintain the Church's influence on the international stage makes him an attractive candidate for those who value continuity and institutional strength over sweeping reform. Yet, the ideological divide between Tagle and Parolin is not just a matter of governance. It reflects the broader debate about the identity of the Catholic Church in the 21st century. Should the Church continue to move in the direction of inclusion, engagement, and reform, or should it reinforce its historical structures and reaffirm its traditional authority? This is the fundamental question that looms over the upcoming conclave, and the answer will determine the course of Catholicism for decades to come outside the Vatican. The faithful watch these developments with a mixture of hope and uncertainty. In regions where the Church is growing, such as Africa, Asia, and Latin America, there is a desire for leadership that understands the realities of these communities. For many, a figure like Tagle represents this shift, as he embodies the Church's future, rather than its past. His ability to connect with people, his emphasis on social justice, and his commitment to interfaith dialogue have made him a beloved figure among those who seek Catholicism as a force for positive change in the world. However, in parts of Europe and North America, where secularism has increasingly taken hold, there is a different conversation taking place. Many Catholics in these regions are concerned about the Church's role in a rapidly changing cultural landscape. Some believe that a more traditional approach is needed to reaffirm Catholic identity and resist external influences that they see as diluting the Church's teachings. These contrasting perspectives highlight the deep divisions within the global Catholic community, making the question of papal succession all the more complex. As the day of the conclave approaches, speculation continues to grow. The process itself is shrouded in secrecy, with the cardinals gathering behind closed doors to cast their votes in one of the most ancient and revered traditions of the Church. Each vote carries with it the weight of history, as the decision made within the Sistine Chapel will shape the future of Catholicism for years to come. While Tagle and Parolin may be the most talked about contenders, surprises are always possible. The College of Cardinals has been known to elect compromise candidates in the past, and if neither Tagle nor Parolin can secure the necessary support, another figure could emerge as a unifying choice. Beyond the immediate political maneuvering, there is a deeper question that lingers in the minds of many Catholics. What kind of church will the next pope lead? Will it be a church that embraces the challenges of the modern world and seeks to evolve with the times? Or will it be one that retreats into tradition and reinforces its historical doctrines? The decision will not be made lightly, and the outcome will have profound implications for millions of believers across the globe. For now, the Vatican remains a place of quiet contemplation and strategic deliberation. The figures at the center of this unfolding drama continue to engage in their work, knowing that their every action is being observed and analyzed by those who will ultimately decide their fate. Tagle, despite the challenges he faces, remains a symbol of hope for those who believe in a church that is open, welcoming, and engaged with the world. Parolin, on the other hand, stands as a figure of stability, a guardian of tradition in uncertain times. No matter who ascends to the papal throne, the next leader of the Catholic Church will inherit an institution at a crossroads. The world is changing rapidly, and the Church must decide how it will respond to the new realities it faces. The choice of pope is not just about one man, It is about the direction of an entire faith, the values it will uphold, and the role it will play in shaping the spiritual and moral landscape of the future. As the world waits, the Vatican remains a place of silent expectation. The echoes of past conclaves reverberate through its halls, reminding all who walk its corridors that this is a place where history is made. And soon, once again, history will be written in the form of white smoke, rising above St. Peter's Basilica, signaling to the world that a new era has begun. Within the Vatican, anticipation builds as the College of Cardinals prepares for the momentous decision that will shape the future of the Catholic Church. The centuries-old walls of St. Peter's Basilica have witnessed countless transitions of power, and soon, another chapter will be added to its long history. While the faithful across the globe pray for divine guidance in the selection of the next pope, inside the corridors of the Vatican, quiet negotiations continue, alliances form and shift, and the ideological battle over the Church's direction intensifies. Cardinal Luis Tagle remains at the forefront of speculation, his name whispered with admiration among those who yearn for a church that fully embraces Pope Francis' vision of inclusivity, pastoral care, and social engagement. His ability to connect with the common people, his extensive work in charitable organizations, and his deep theological knowledge have made him a natural successor in the eyes of many. However, even among his supporters, there is an understanding that the path to the papacy is anything but straightforward. His main rival, Cardinal Pietro Parolin, represents an entirely different approach to leadership, one steeped in Vatican diplomacy and tradition. While Tagle's popularity lies in his ability to engage with the faithful at a personal level, Parolin's strength comes from his behind-the-scenes mastery of church governance. His work as the Vatican Secretary of State has made him a respected figure among those who prioritize stability, institutional continuity, and the diplomatic role of the Holy See. His supporters argue that, at a time of geopolitical instability and increasing secular pressures, the Catholic Church needs a leader who can navigate the complexities of global politics while preserving its traditional doctrines. The tension between these two figures is not just a matter of personality, it is a battle over the very soul of the Catholic Church. The fundamental question remains: should the Church continue down the path of reform, outreach, and modern engagement, or should it take a more cautious approach, reinforcing its historical identity and protecting its core teachings from the influence of external forces? For many within the Vatican, the answer is not clear-cut. While Pope Francis' tenure has been marked by significant changes, greater openness toward marginalized communities, a focus on environmental issues, and an emphasis on pastoral care, these reforms have not been universally accepted. Traditionalist factions within the Church remain deeply skeptical of these shifts, fearing that they may dilute Catholic doctrine and weaken the institution's authority. Some argue that the Church's primary role should not be to adapt to modern society, but to uphold eternal truths, regardless of contemporary cultural trends. This divide extends far beyond the walls of the Vatican. Across the world, Catholic communities face different challenges, and the choice of the next pope will impact how the Church responds to them. In Europe and North America, where secularization has led to declining church attendance, many conservative Catholics believe that a return to traditional values is necessary to reaffirm the Church's identity. They argue that a leader like Parolin, who understands the complexities of the Vatican's internal structure and its diplomatic relations, would be better suited to lead in such an era. Meanwhile, in Africa, Asia, and Latin America, where Catholicism continues to grow, many believe that the Church must continue to evolve to remain relevant. For these communities, Tagle's emphasis on social justice, his deep commitment to the poor, and his advocacy for a more engaged and compassionate church make him the ideal candidate. His election would signal a shift toward a truly global Catholicism, one that acknowledges the needs of its most rapidly expanding populations. As the conclave approaches, the political maneuvering intensifies. Supporters of both Tagle and Parolin work discreetly to gather votes, seeking to persuade undecided cardinals that their candidate represents the best future for the Church. However, history has shown that conclaves are often unpredictable. The election of Pope Francis was itself a surprise, with many expecting a more traditional choice. The next conclave could very well produce a similarly unexpected outcome. Beyond Tagle and Pereland,